Cutback for Vasilev, and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal in his Union debut? The record signing, off and running in his first appearance for the club.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and I don't think anybody saw the Philadelphia Union's 2025 season ending as early as it has, with the 1-0 loss to NYCFC thanks to a Maxi Morales goal. Yes, Maxi Morales once again haunting the Philadelphia Union in the playoffs. Joined as always by Jose Nunez as we discuss last night's game against New York City with topics such as last night's starting 11, the 22-day layoff, heroics from Matt Freese, and like I just mentioned, the UN Slayer Maxi Morales himself, and Blend of the Week, which I think is going to be a very, very good candidate Blend of the Week for this week, which also kind of ties into Jose Nunez because he has a good story to share, which I never told him what Blend of the Week's going to be. Nor did I tell you guys in the show description, but Jose is definitely going to know what I mean once I throw it over to him because he had mentioned something on social media today. So anyway, without further ado, Jose, how you doing?
Much better. Last night was a bit of a night, right? In terms of, I don't know. I'm so tired. So tired. What a night. One of those later games. Granted, it was all of 20 minutes later than usual, I think, for Union games. But MLS, again, unbelievably fortunate to be able to write for the league itself. But having to write the New York City FC angle last night continues to show me how teams do press differently. And my goodness, does NYCFC take press in a completely different way, where it was so long to wait for people to come out of the locker room. I think we waited for everybody to shower before we got the first person, including Pascal Jansen. So it was just such an unbelievably long night. So unfortunate. There's so much to unpack about this game, despite it only being a 1-goal type of game. It's the fact is, and maybe this is where we can just use as a jump off point. The Union wanted none of that Miami smoke if they can't get through New York City FC at home. So maybe it's saved from a 7-0 beating like they did against Vancouver, but we'll never know, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, it stings. And we can get into this a little bit later, but it stings where we all know that the Union would have hosted MLS Cup final. And it's different than what it was in 2022. And we know how deadly the Union were at home this season, only losing once. And so that's maybe why it's such a shock that the Union lost last night against New York City, a shorthanded New York City team. And not to take anything away from that New York City team, very quality opponent as we saw last night. And I think Pascal Janssen's done a tremendous job with New York City. And everybody that listened to the last episode with myself and Glenn Crook, New York City radio play-by-play announcer, I appreciate you guys. And Glenn, before he hopped on my show, him and Roberto Abramowitz were talking about on their show how Pascal uses psychologically with his players, with his teams, how he really hones into that. And they brought up an interesting point in that podcast where a lot of coaches, and it's not just soccer, it's all sports, really have a craft. They really hone into the whole psychological aspect of professional sports. And I think Pascal handled that tremendously with Alonso Martinez, your leading goal scorer, out for the season. Andres Pereira out for the season with that leg fracture. Aiden O'Neill suspended for this game because of yellow card accumulation. You're down 2 starting defensive midfielders. And to have your team not speak to the media about the players that aren't there, but about the players that are here. It kind of reminds me a little bit about Bradley Cornell. How many times has we heard throughout the season, whether it be players on international duty, players suspended, players injured, it's the next man up mentality. And that's exactly what we saw last night from New York City. And so, yeah, I do want to give Pascal his flowers, the credit that he deserves for getting his players to believe that, look, yes, we know how important these players that missed last night were to our success this season, but we are so much more than these players. And that's something that Bradley Cornell really got this team, the Philadelphia Union, to also buy into this season.
To your point of the comments and the way that this mentality seems to be up and down the spine of New York City, of the whole versus the individual, it was honestly, Todd, so apparent in listening to Justin Hack, or Pascal as well. But even with a player who I guess you could argue outside of Matt Freese was obviously the point of focus, having scored the game-winning goal and continue to be the boogeyman like against the Union. Uh, it was just great to hear, right? Like none of them were talking about how difficult it was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was more of a, we just showed and proved anybody that we can beat anybody, was really the message that they continue to share. And the reality is that, yeah, they can beat anybody anywhere, it feels like, considering that they did it at Charlotte twice and now at Philadelphia, a place where, as I wrote for Philly Voice, it's not a place where, you know, the Union really know what losing means. That they have no real clue onto what it means to lose, considering they only lost once all season at Subaru Park. So certainly a message that's understood among all of the New York City players, but you know, easier said than done. It seems like they are genuinely living it, and I think Bradley does the same with the players at Philadelphia, but I definitely did not feel that way last night. That was such a, you know, why, who knows, maybe, you know, we'll talk into the schedule and this and that, but the reality is that, again, if the Union did not want any of that Miami smoke after what they did to Cincinnati if they can't beat New York City FC at home. So maybe it saved them from a little embarrassment.
Because we all remember what happened during the Leagues Cup. I mean, what a disappointing result for the Union against Inter Miami a few years ago. The game ended up being, what, 4-1 Miami, 4-0 Miami? I forget what it was. Damian Lowe did not have a great game against Lionel Messi and his ex-Barcelona teammates. But shoulda, coulda, woulda. We know what the facts are, and the facts are that the Philadelphia Union lost last night, and we'll dive into that. But before we dive into it, we do have news to talk about briefly, and usually, you know, I'll play a soundbite and everything, but this is pretty serious to talk about, so we're gonna save all the fun gist of the sound bites and whatnot. But a report came out by The Guardian. Pablo Maurer, former athletic writer, came out and wrote that the Philadelphia Union sporting director, Ernst Tanner, is being investigated by MLS after a report published by Pablo at The Guardian detailing allegations of sexist, racist, and homophobic behavior from Tanner spending 7 years during his time at the club. And so when you read that, not great stuff and everything. And Bradley Cornell was eventually asked about this at his midweek press conference before the game. And Bradley came out and said that he didn't believe that this investigation, that this report was playing a factor in how his players were going to go ahead and approach this game. I know Jonathan Tannenwald had interviewed Alejandro Bedoya as well, and Bedoya pretty much echoed those same sentiments that that Cornell shared at his press conference. But I do want to go ahead and share real quick the statement released by MLS. I'll go ahead and read the Union statement. And then Ernst Tanner did give a statement to Jonathan Tannenwald at the Philadelphia Inquirer with this ongoing investigation with the report from Pablo at The Guardian. So we'll start with MLS's statement. And this was on November 19th at 11:29 a.m. MLS says, MLS recently conducted concluded an investigation into allegations raised by the MLS Players Association, with the MLSPA noted had not been independently verified. The league immediately launched an investigation, conducting more than a dozen current and former players and club employees. All individuals were offered the option to participate anonymously and assured they could speak without fear to retaliation. A majority of those contacted participated, several anonymously, while others declined. After reviewing all available information and documentation, the investigation was unable to substantiate the allegations. Nonetheless, given the nature of the allegation, Mr. Tanner has been required to participate in structured remedial program focused on professional workplace conduct. Following a publication of a Guardian article that included new allegations and potentially new information, MLS will reopen the investigation. MLS maintains an anonymous reporting hotline and encourages anyone with relevant information to come forward. So there's MLS's statement on these reports published by The Guardian. And so around 11:51, the Philadelphia Union came out with their statement. The Philadelphia Union takes all allegations of misconduct extremely seriously and is committed to maintaining a safe, respectful, and inclusive environment for everyone associated with our club. Discrimination, harassment, or abusive conduct of any kind has no place here, and all staff are required to complete annual sensitivity training. While a recent MLS investigation was unable to corroborate allegations involving sporting director Ernst Tanner, MLS has advised the union that it will be reopening the investigation, and the union continues to cooperate fully. The union has placed Mr. Tanner on administration leave. During the investigation, throughout this process, our top priority remains the well-being of our players, fans, staff, and community. So there you have it, the Philadelphia Union statement. And then, like I had mentioned, Ernst Tanner had submitted a statement. Him and his representatives sent it to Jonathan Tannenwald of the Philadelphia Inquirer and said, "I continue to firmly deny these accusations. My priority is the team, the employees, and the Philadelphia Union community, particularly at this important time when the team has the opportunity to continue to excel in the playoffs. I will cooperate fully with the league's investigation as I work to clear my good name and reputation." And so there you have it, Ernst Tanner's statement to Jonathan Tannenwald at the Inquirer. But yeah, again, I mean, not too much to share. This is a ongoing investigation, and there isn't anything more to say than what Pablo has reported on, and you guys have saw the statements from 3 different parties, and yeah, that's where things stand. If you guys haven't read this report, which I would imagine most of you guys listening to the show have, I'll leave a link in the show description so you guys can see everything that Ernst is being accused of. And yeah, that's pretty much there is all to say, in my opinion, at least on my end. Jose, anything else to add?
Some people had reached out to me about whether or not I had heard anything, this or that, and the reality is that, like, maybe I've heard things. I don't know, rumblings, etc. But the reality is that, like, this is all an ongoing investigation. Obviously, you and I cannot and will not really pontificate on it. But what I would hope from your audience or the audience is that this is, he is innocent until proven guilty. So we'll see how this all carries itself out. It's that there's obviously a process for something like this, and they're carrying it out for the second time. I think it's also quite obvious, and happy and open to say it. If any of that stuff is true, it is obviously that no one deserves a workplace that's not safe, a workplace where you have to deal with someone who does that type of thing. No one deserves that, male, female, whatever. So I think anybody with a sane mind will also say, I hope it's not true, right? So we'll see what happens. To me, I think where I'm at with it is that it is unbelievably unfortunate that this is likely the biggest thing that this season may likely be remembered for. not the Supporter Shield, not making it to the Eastern Conference semifinal, not having one of the best home records in MLS this year, not the vast amount of work that people behind the scenes, may it be from the nutrition side of things to that awesome security guard that always gives a fist bump on the way into the players mix zone, to the amount of work that folks in the scouting department and other departments put in. But all of that is the grounds crew, etc. All of that gets sort of tossed into the back seat and this put in the forward facing place, because this is obviously scathing. I think is probably the best word to say. So again, I hope it's not true. This team is through and through Ernst Tanner. I think it's, at least in my opinion, fair to say that this is the best team that the Union have ever had in its history. And for work and the many years that Ernst has been at the team, if this is the way he goes out, or any of these pieces of accusations are actually true, that's not a great way to have your legacy remembered for as much work and as much of the way that he defied odds, right? In terms of buying low, working with low budgets, and turning into one of the best teams in MLS over whatever 7 years at this point, or whatever the math adds up to, that's favorable to the Union. I know Jim used to always toss out the best team and collective points over 5 years. Obviously, then one really, really bad year in 2024. But yeah, I'm probably at this point rambling on, and all that to say that I hope it's not true, and B, I hope that those listening and watching understand that this is an ongoing investigation. So I'm sure there's more to come out, and hopefully all of it is not true, right? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and change topics to why everybody is tuning in live or listening back on the RSS feed. That is last night's Philadelphia Union loss to New York City FC by a score of 1-0, thanks to Maxi Morales' goal. And I think before we talk about the lineup, before we talk about the many days off and everything else that we're going to talk about, Jose, you had mentioned it a little bit right there, just talking about the work of the front office and the grounds crew and the coaching staff and the players, literally everybody involved in this club. And you and I don't want to speak for you, Jose, but I feel like I get accused by some when I go on podcasts and everything of being a fan. And I wouldn't say I don't want the Union to win. Like, I do want the Union to win because it makes content a lot better. You get more people reading your work. You get more people tuning in live to the podcast, watching goals breakdown video, listening to podcasts, etc. When the Union win, people tune in. Like that's a fact. Like, the Union winning does everybody good. But you and I are critical. You and I aren't shy away. I would say you and I definitely aren't homers. We've not been shy about giving criticism where criticism's due. But what makes me sad, what makes me disappointed about last night's loss is knowing many people in the organization that put in so much work this season, Jose. So much work. I can recall almost a year ago, you and I sitting on this podcast and talking about predictions and where we think the Union are going to finish. And remember the people at MLS are saying, yeah, they think the Union are going to be a bottom 8-9 seed, might not even make the playoffs. I don't think there's anybody in this world that had the Union winning the Supporters Shield this season. And they go out and do exactly that. They define the odds. They bring in a brand new coach. They bring in multiple new players. They break their transfer record and bring in Bruno Damiani. And yet, what do they do as soon as Bradley Cornell gets here? They win. They win. They win. And you and I said, Jose, that yes, maybe as disappointing as it was to see Jim Curtin fired in the manner that he was fired, yes, we know how attached this fan base is. People in the media, we know how good Jim Curtin was to us. I mean, he was great to the media. And Bradley Cornell was never going to replace Jim Curtin, and it was always going to be a tough task for Bradley Cornell to come in here and and take over for Jim Curtin because of how long he had been involved in the organization. But the best thing for Bradley Cornell to do was to win. And the more you keep winning, the less noise there's going to be about this is Jim Curtin's team. And when it's all said and done, this is Bradley Cornell's team. To see how he got the Phil Weddens of the world, the Frank Likes of the world, Brandon Kaminsky's, Dan Nolan, etc. So many people in this organization, players too, that were still left over from Jim Curtin's time to all buy in and say, you know what? Change is difficult. I remember Bradley Cornell saying that in his introductory press conference. He told the staff, he told the players that change is difficult, but let's try to do this together. And look what they did. They won the Supporters Shield. And so for me, it's disappointing knowing that there was no expectations of the Union to win Supporters Shield this year. There was no expectations for the Union to win MLS Cup this year, but they do win the Supporters Shield. Watching a Jovan Lukic, who was an unknown, come in and be one of the best number 6s this season. Stanley John Jock, we saw moments last year how good he would be, and then he really came into his own this year. You could argue that him and Jovan Lukic are the two best defensive midfielders in MLS. To see Bruno Damiani get robbed multiple times this season, but I would say he acclimated well to MLS, to his teammates. I mean, think about how many different striker partnerships Bruno had to face this season. But you know what? He went out there and he built chemistry. And I remember on the Dupe, he was talking about you look at other clubs, the strikers hate each other because you're all competing against one another. You're all fighting for that spot. But he said that's not the case here. That wasn't the case here in Philadelphia with a Mikael Ord, Ty Baribo, a Milan Alaski eventually. They all buy in. They all want to see each other succeed. And so to see this team go to heights that nobody had them reach, to fall short the way that they did, that's what makes me disappointed, Jose.
Yeah, I don't I thank you for sharing that. It was a tough watch. Yeah, I think I described it to you when we were talking in the press box or in the press dining room, whatever. I think we were just sort of joking, like 22 days later, what does this game look like realistically? What does it look like realistically after that long of a layoff for Philadelphia? I guess it was more like 2 weeks for New York City. And I think I remember telling you or someone else who had asked a similar question that it was going to genuinely feel like plastic toys just going up against each other because how much pent up energy these two teams had after 2 weeks and 3 weeks in a day. And you're absolutely right, man. Like, this is a team that had a lot of people having to speak from both sides of their mouths, right? Of calling them, or I guess giving them no credit for what they would eventually become, to ultimately having to, whether they wanted to or not, praise them for how well they ended up having, or how great of a season they ended up having. Never mind the success that they, this is a team that was, I would say, very close to having 2 trophies this year with the US Open Cup too. So yeah, it's tough to watch this game and want to think about the amount of hours that you, myself, Mike Barrera, our other friends, Jillian and Kyle, and other friends in the media that we put on of our own time. Some of us are, and it's not lost to me, fortunate to make some money off of it, get rewarded that way. A lot of people are doing it out of the bottom of their heart, kindness of their heart, just for the passion of the game. So to not think about the amount of time that put in and then have to watch that game, it's really tough not to be disappointed. And of course, we try our best and ultimately, I think, do a pretty good job, especially after what I witnessed in the New York City FC press room. We do a really good job of separating, our feelings about a team, players, coaches, etc., members of an organization, and ultimately being relatively professional press people. Last night was a tough watch, and I guess the lucky thing is that there's only 92 days before the next game, right? So it's a quick turnaround, all things considered. But yeah, this game has a lot of dissecting to be done, considering how it started and how it could have started, and ultimately how it ended. And I think how it could have ended if not for the performance of one single individual who just genuinely, I believe, cemented himself as a starter for the World Cup this coming summer.
Yeah, I agree. And the last thing I'll say on this point before we talk about the 22 days off, I'm going to go out of order of how I had the show set up, which is fine. But this season, there was no expectations. Like I said, so many people had the Union finishing 8-9. I believe I had the Union around 8-9, playing in a playing game to get into the playoffs. A lot of people over at MLS, the personalities, didn't even have the Union making the playoffs. Somebody in the comment section, if you can find that list of the personalities where they had the Union finishing, go ahead and send a link or something, and I'll try to bring it up at some point in the live stream. I probably should have looked at that before we did this, but I want to say like half of them had the Union missing the playoffs. And now, Jose, after winning the Supporters Shield, and knowing that majority of this team will be back next year, I would imagine, because of contracts, there's going to be expectations next year that this team finishes, I would say, probably top 4. That's where I'm feeling personally, not knowing how other teams are going to go out this winter and do their business, but there's going to be expectations for this Union team after watching them succeed. And yes, you can say the Union probably overachieved a little bit, but at the same time, nobody's going to pick the Union to finish 7, 8, 9, miss the playoffs. It's going to be competing for trophies. And let's not forget, too, they're going to be in CCC next year as well, once again. How does the club manage that? So expectations are going to be higher than they were this season. And that's why I feel like this year was maybe the year to win MLS Cup, where the expectations, the pressure wasn't there. Bradley Cornell always said, be the hunters, not the hunted. Next year, they're going to be the hunted just because of how successful this season was for them. But
sorry, I made it. I bookmarked the website instead of unmuting. So
I see that.
So I put it in the chat. The standing predictions.
Maybe I can copy and paste that there. I can't get it.
Oh yeah, my bad.
You're good. You're good.
But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. This was likely the season. I don't think many people really thought about that, Todd. I know you and I had talked about it. I know I mentioned it to Kevin Kincaid over at It's Always Soccer in Philadelphia. Other people in the press of the Union have this incredible opportunity to only playing in 2 competitions outside of playoffs, right? The MLS regular season and US Open Cup. And unfortunately, they walked away with the Supporters Shield only. And I say unfortunately because they were so close to the US Open Cup. They even had a favorable path to get there, but unfortunately they just couldn't get it over the line against Nashville. So yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous in hindsight, right? Like, look how poorly Atlanta ended up doing, right?
Second is wild.
Yeah, which is and that's where I think you have the parachuting press, and I say that as someone who parachutes in a lot now, writing for MLS, trying to be as much of an expert as you can on every single team. But I could have told you Atlanta was not going to be a number 2 team in the East. Like, that is just unreal. Never mind the West, San Diego last. That's unbelievable. And that one, yeah. And this one I can forgive a little bit more, because who would have thought that San Diego genuinely was going to have the season that they had, right? Like St. Louis all over again during their inaugural season. So yeah, it's so fun to go into this like time machine type of exercise here, Todd.
It is. I mean, LA Galaxy 3 and watching where they finish on the table. Yeah, I mean, this is the fun of it. And I think the parity of MLS at any given moment, any given week, anybody can win. And so, yeah, it's great to make predictions, and we'll make predictions next season, I'm sure. And then we'll be here once again, just having this discussion, and hopefully the season doesn't come to an end like it did or as early as it did this year. But yeah, it is interesting, Jose, looking at some of those predictions and seeing where the MLS media had the teams finishing. And yeah, everybody knew that Miami was going to be a good team. I mean, when you have arguably the greatest player to ever play the game in Lionel Messi on your team, yeah, you expect them to go out and win trophies. And I'd mentioned this on the MLS Better Fan Show, saying if Miami doesn't win a trophy at all this season, should Javier Mascherano be fired potentially? And
I
well,
say that about Pat Noonan.
you did say that about Pat Noonan, and uh, so did some fans I know over there, and some people in the media over there too. And yeah, questions should be have. Here's something for you in the audience. If Pat Noonan did get fired, does Jim Curtin take the job in Cincinnati? We know that Chris Albright wanted him at one time, and Jay Sugarman said, "No, I'm not making him available."
Mm. That would be a very interesting hire. Todd, you sort of brought up something earlier that's really interesting, and I think more or less spoke about the type of window that this was. Right? I think you often hear about windows in baseball or any sport, I guess, of just opportunity, considering the roster and the certainly in soccer specifically, which is different than baseball and football, the amount of competitions that you play in, etc. But this was absolutely a window for Philadelphia, a 1-year window. Immediately feels like a 1-year window, considering the lack of competitions, and how many it just suddenly you add next year. But I see the question in the chat. Bedoya, I and I know this is going to be a different show topic for us in the future. I don't know about Bedoya. I don't know about Mikel Ua, who I guess made comments after the match. I was busy with New York City FC, writing for the league.
And we're gonna play those comments, by the way.
Cool. I also wonder about Baribo. What he has an option for next year, and I would go ahead and speculate that it's got to be more of a sale than actually getting a long-term deal. So the amount of questions that are coming into the offseason, and sure, I know Bradley Cornell was not interested in really talking about the future immediately after the game, which I think it's fair, and he handled that question so well. I give him credit. It seemed like night and day from what he would answer earlier in the season, the way that he approached that question this go around. The end of season press conference, sooner rather than later, should be scheduled. I pray that the Philadelphia Union media folks give us ample time to plan out, versus I think we typically would get a message in the morning, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh, it's at noon. It's like, well, this isn't very helpful, but thanks. I wonder if the Ernst Tanner stuff is gonna slow down some of these decisions, or they just gotta tackle them without much help from him specifically. Though I would go ahead and guess that a lot of these are already decided, to be completely honest with you, or pretty close to decided as is. That's not me breaking news or anything. That's just me, frankly, just speculating from my gut, because these conversations don't just happen overnight about renewing players, etc. You sort of build it into a master plan of succession plan. So yeah, I have so many questions that I want to ask, but just don't know who would answer them, or if they even have the ability to answer them as is.
Yeah, true. So real quick, I mean, the question that Jose's talking about, people who are on the RSS feed and not watching live or going back on YouTube to watch this. Bruce says, besides Bedoya, who else will the team be losing? And so I have it up here. Hopefully you guys can see it watching it live. Hopefully it's clear to you guys. I mean, I just try to watch it on YouTube and it looks like really grainy. So hopefully it's not the case for you guys. Hopefully it's just my phone. But Bedoya is out of contract. Mikel Ua is out of contract. Ben Bender's out of contract. And George Marks is out of contract. And then you have player options for 2026 for Ty Baribo, Chris Donovan, Nathan Harriel, Oliver Zemla, Indiana Vasilev, Isaiah LaFleur, Nick Pariano, and that's it. Then everybody else is guaranteed through next season. So I think that's 8 options for next year, and then 4 players out of contract. If I can do quick math, which math has never been a strong suit of mine, so hopefully, hopefully I can do quick math like that. But yeah, Jose and I will talk about that once roster decisions are made official, and we'll have something to talk about. But yeah, this isn't the show to really talk about what we would do or options that are or aren't going to be made. But yeah, I just wanted to share, I guess, like my thoughts on why I was disappointed. And I'm glad you shared everything that you said, Jose. And I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the first topic is the is the 22 days off. I want to talk about going out of order here. 22 days off. And we knew this would probably be an issue, Jose. We did the exercise, you and I believe, a couple podcasts ago. I brought it up again with Glenn Crooks last year, looking at history in the playoffs for the Union with a long layoff. We looked at games this season for the Union where there's been long layoffs, most notably the Vancouver game, 7-0 defeat. Union lose in Vancouver. Then they have to go a couple days later and play down in Nashville, lose the US Open Cup semifinal as well. We don't need to talk about that horrible two-game road trip for the Union, but it did come at the cost of a long layoff, a 14-day layoff for the Union. Not as long as last night's game of 22 days for the Union. And I'm not trying to make an excuse. I don't think Jose's trying to make an excuse because New York City did also have a layoff. They had a 2-week break. The Union had 3 weeks, and Pascal Janssen had said he only had 2 days to have his full team available of the players not suspended or injured to get training in. So yes, there was a factor. And how do you coach when you don't have your full players available because players are away on international duty, players are injured, players are whatever? It's difficult. It's difficult. And credit to him. Credit to him and his team. Don't want to take anything away. We'll probably praise New York City, I'm sure, later on in this podcast, maybe coming up. But 22 days, Jose, not good. We saw New York City defeat New England in 2021 after New England had this historic year winning the Supporters' Shield. We saw the year prior, the Union playing New England, I believe, 5 times that season, have a long layoff of 18, 19 days. They lose to New England in the first game of the playoffs. Yes, I understand that this is good for players that are injured. It's recovery days. But Bradley Cornell talked about it. You can't replicate the actual games. You can try, but nothing beats an actual game.
No, nothing does. And doing my own digging around during the break, it's tough. I mean, international breaks as they are very difficult to work through. As I understand it, it's just an exercise of just keeping people entertained until everybody comes back, and then praying that everybody comes back healthy to ultimately get those 48 hours with everybody back. So to have that, but also have an additional week of just figuring out what to do. Sure, you can try to scrimmage against the Union too, or whatever other side that they can try to bring in. I don't know that they did or didn't. That I'm not sure about. But it would be very difficult for me to go ahead and say on the record that this wasn't a factor. This is the amount of rust that you could tell from this team going into this game was so apparent as you look, and not to single out a single player, or a specific player, but Jovan Lukic, to me, it was so telling that he was a guy that was rusty after getting out of rhythm for 22 days. I think Danley looked a little rusty. Of course, he did some wonderful things over the break. Congratulations to him and Haiti for qualifying to the World Cup. Incredible story. But it was quite obvious that, there was some rust there. So I there's obviously a different world, universe, whatever you want to call it, where this isn't an issue. And it seems like MLS is sort of working through that next year, waiting for the international break to happen before I forget if it was the start or the next round of playoffs, but
Before the start of playoffs.
right, but before the start of playoffs. So they already, to me, that alone tells me that they know it's an issue. They know that is a problem that maybe they never imagined in their focus testing. They never realized that was going to be an issue. In conversations with MLSPA, they didn't think that would be an issue, or they disregarded whatever recommendation. But the sheer fact that they're changing it next year is already, to me, telling me that, oh yeah, this is an issue all along, and now they're finally course correcting a little bit before they ultimately change it anyways for that sprint season in 2027. So yeah, this is not making excuses, but this is a tough one to say that it didn't have a factor or play a factor into the game.
I agree. So Milan Alaski was asked after the game his thoughts. Did the 22 days off play a factor in how the team played against New York City?
Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal to have a 3-week break in playoffs. We said in the beginning that we were trying to treat it like a new preseason. So, it's definitely not ideal to sweep a team in the first round and then feel like you get punished. But it's not my job to sort that out. So. At the end of the day, we had to take responsibility, and we did everything we could to be prepared, and it's just on the players to perform better.
I gotta tell you, Todd, having not been in that room, that is as quiet as I have heard the player area. So I think that tells me a lot about the mood on that side of the building.
Yeah, it was quiet. It was definitely quiet. Kai Wagner was supposed to come out. He was requested by the media. Kai had left the stadium, we were told, and did not come and speak to the media. So do with that as you will. We know how vocal Kai Wagner does get. We know that Kai has given Jose plenty of good sound bites after heat of the moment situations. And maybe Kai didn't want to have another situation like that, and he removed himself from the problem. I don't know. But Kai Wagner did not speak, even though he was requested. But Bradley Cornell, during his press conference, was asked about why he thought his team started slow, because he had mentioned in his opening statement that, yeah, it wasn't a great first half for his team. They started slow, and Bradley Cornell was asked to dive a little bit further into examples of how they started slow.
We didn't play vertical enough. I thought it was a little bit too side to side. I thought it was a little bit backwards and around. So once we broke a line, we went straight backwards again. The second balls weren't falling in our favor. They were a little bit more active against the ball than they've shown, and credit to them. And then we work our way back into it. So, I don't think, they had a team out there that was committed. They had a team out there that was hungry, and for the first couple of moments of the game, we didn't really match that. So that's on me, and I don't want to say that took us by surprise, because it's us playing this way every single day and training every way. So, but something just didn't feel right, and we're a little bit slow to get into the game. And once we did, I thought we were very good.
And he's right. They did eventually get into the game. Second half, a much better performance for the Union, in my opinion, and big part of that, I would say, was Frankie Westfield, which we'll get into in a little bit. But Bradley couldn't really pinpoint what felt off, what felt different for his team. And I think looking on the outside, it's just the 22 days off. Let's be honest. And Bradley was asked a little bit later on, and he said he can only go off of his experiences. And I believe he said he had 23 days off with St. Louis before they played Sporting Kansas City. And we know how the playoffs went for St. Louis in Bradley's first season as the head coach there. And now here's another long layoff for Bradley Cornell. And once again, his team doesn't handle it the best, which I'm not blaming Bradley Cornell. I'm not putting blame on him whatsoever. Any team struggles. I had given the example of New England in 2021 after they had this historic season. Long layoffs don't help anybody. And Cornell said it best in this press conference. You guys can go ahead and listen to it live on YouTube, the full thing. We won't play it here. But he says you can't replicate actual games. I can remember hearing multiple coaches talking about bringing in stadium noises, piping in stadium sounds and everything, trying to replicate what it's going to sound like on game day, whether it be at football games, baseball games, soccer games, etc. But nothing replicates an actual soccer game. I think it was a couple years ago, Jose. The Union scrimmaged against Westchester in the playoffs, and no shade at Westchester, but they're not up to par to an MLS club. Like, it's great that you found a team to scrimmage against, but how good is that helping you? And no team that's knocked out of the playoff is going to say, "Oh yeah, we're scrimmage you." I don't think they would. At least, I mean, I'm sure there's probably contractual issues with
Right.
that, but
Right.
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that this break is the way it is, and it's been this way for years in MLS. So, not an excuse, but it does indeed play a factor.
I think so. I don't know that there's much else to add in fear of sounding redundant. I just it makes you wonder if the format was different, what this ultimately would have looked like, but we'll never know.
Yeah, exactly. But let's go back to what I was going to start the show with, but I was like, yeah, let's go ahead and pivot. The starting 11 for the Union: Andre Blake, Nathan Harriel, Jacob Glesnes, Alawatu Makanya, Wagner, Danley, Lukic, Vasilev, Iloski, Baribo, Damiani up top. And so I posed the question to you guys, the audience. I posed the question to Jose, and yes, hindsight's 2020. Should Coronel have started Westfield and Ua instead of Baribo and Nathan Harriel? And I can't remember if I said it on the podcast to you guys, but I know I definitely said it to multiple people before this game, days leading up to this game, saying that I would start Frankie Westfield over Nathan Harriel just because Frankie offers you more offensively, in my opinion. And it was pretty obvious. It was pretty obvious as soon as Frankie comes onto the field last night, Jose, just what he adds to you offensively. And yeah, hindsight's 2020, and I'm sure Crownell maybe would want to have that one back, but there's just been enough film for me, and I don't want to speak for you, Jose, but I've seen it enough times this season where I don't believe Baribo and Damiani can be in the same 11. They're just too similar. They make too similar of runs. Why Ua works so well with both Baribo and Damiani is because he's completely different than both of them. He stretches the back line. He makes runs out into the channel. He opens opportunities up 1v1. You don't really get that with Damiani and Baribo starting, in my opinion. And seeing those guys start, and I get it, they started against Chicago in the second game, but that was more so mistakes by Chicago than anything that Baribo and Damiani were doing themselves. And so when I saw Baribo and Damiani were up top once again, I had a feeling it was going to be a little bit of an issue. But my bigger issue was not starting Frankie Westfield, because I knew New York City were going to come into this game and sit deep. They had every right to come into this game and sit deep with the amount of players they had missing. And so if you want to break teams down, you play more offensive-minded players. I think Nathan Harriel is the better defender to Frankie Westfield. But offensively, I think Frankie's a little bit better at this point in his very young career.
I wholeheartedly agree with a lot, and Todd, maybe to maybe to satiate your comments next year, or save you from comments next year. This might have been the last time that the Union see Baribo on their side, right? And so you won't have to worry about having two similar strikers up front. But in terms of Westfield and Nate, I remain in shock that Frankie's performances at the World Cup, the U20 World Cup, did not just make him an automatic start the rest of the postseason. If I recall, he only started the second game against Chicago, and came in as a substitute for the first one. And then obviously a substitute for this match. I please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like just remembering here. Now, in terms of this game, God, would I have loved to see the shit talking from Frankie against New York City for more than whatever it was, 30 minutes. That would have been glorious to watch. And I think he would have brought an edge, which is exactly what this team needed, right? An X factor. And I believe it was you who asked in the press conference, Todd, about Frankie, and and Bradley was quick to say, yeah, I mean, I think you saw what he brought. It's like, well, yeah, like he sort of helped flip the game around a little bit. But even looking at the statistics, and I know it's not apples to apples because of the situation of the game, in the time that Nate played, 3 crosses, none of them on target, or finding ahead. In the time that Frankie played, he went ahead and put in 6 crosses, 1 finding ahead. So again, in just such a short amount of time, Frankie was dumping the ball in a lot faster, a lot better. So I think Nate has a place in this team. I think his place has been more or less just taken over by Westfield. I just don't know. Oh, these are tough to watch. This is, but I think, yeah, there you go. And that should have been a goal. I mean, should is its strong word, but man, that one cross that found ahead should have likely found the XG on that shot, Todd. I don't know what it is, but probably pretty damn high on what the XG was. But you don't deserve Frankie at his best unless you can deal with him at his worst. And I think those 2 opportunities, one which I think will end up ultimately being offside, and then the one that was saved by Matt Freese at just about point blank. So you gotta deal with the good and the bad at the same time that comes with any one player.
0.19 and 0.16 for the chance by Dylan Janjak and Bruno Damiani on that cross by Frankie Westfield. So yeah, I mean, they weren't huge. I think the Danley one would have been a lot higher if you would have put that on target. He should have put it on target.
Yes.
Because I mean, it's a pinpoint accurate cross there that we saw from Frankie Westfield. And you're right. I did ask Bradley Cornell about what him and his staff saw with Frankie Westfield. It seemed like it was the right decision to bring on Frankie. And I am going to play that clip because I thought it was an interesting comment by Bradley Cornell about subbing on Frankie and what Frankie brought to this team.
Well, I think you saw the result, right? So, we could rotate Nate inside a little bit, get Frankie out wide, and whip in some good crosses because, everyone knows Kai Wagner's ability on the ball to cross it. And when you have a secondary option like Frankie, that creates a little bit more, guesswork for the opponent. And I think you could see the result of that. It's just unfortunate, man. We got into that spot so many times. And, it's just we could have got ourselves 2 goals at the end there. So, again, you have to start thinking out the box a little bit. And there's only 20 minutes left. And you have to think, what's the best structure? And we thought 4-1-3-2 still gave us a little bit more shape, width, verticality, combating for the second balls as we started to go a bit more direct. So, we had so many moments in the second half, and
Yeah, so many moments. I mean, he's not wrong. We saw a huge moment there with the cross from Frankie Westfield into Dylan Janjak and then Bruno Damiani. And I don't think this is a hot take, Jose, because we saw how acrobatic he was this season. I mean, the biggest non-goal for Bruno Damiani was that chance against Toronto. It always replays in my mind. I mean, this guy, he's 6'1". He's 6'1", and to see how acrobatic he is at 6'1" is insane. It is insane that he could just turn his body as quick as he does, get these overhead kicks, and be close multiple occasions. It's insane to me. I mean, professional soccer players, I give them all the respect in the world, how they make something look so simple. And it's unfortunate that we didn't see Damiani put the ball in the back of the net, and then there's also the chance you were talking about with Frankie Westfield, where it's a ball played in by Milan Lasky towards that back post. Wolf, well, no, it wasn't Wolf. I forget what player that was. I can't really tell right there. Frankie Westfield makes the run in behind, and it's a huge wasted opportunity there by Frankie. Puts it right over the crossbar. It's a great find by Milan Lasky.
Was that offsides?
Nah, it was never given.
Oh shit! That makes me even more mad. I thought for some reason that was offsides too. Shit.
Yeah, I looked exactly at the referee. Flag never came up. Came up, and that makes it even worse. And you had mentioned XG on that play, Jose, 0.38.
That seems wonky.
Bigger chance, bigger opportunity than Danley and Bruno Damiani's. Maybe because he was more in 1v1 against Matt Freese, but yeah, I mean, the chances came. The chances came for this team. Bradley Cannell's right. Just weren't able to execute, and it was totally different too. Because I can remember we've complained about it multiple times on the show, Jose, or more so me. I don't want to put all the pressure on you, all the blame on you, but I've complained about the lack of chance creation. New York City, we went to that game, and that trip to Citi Field will always be ingrained in my mind. And then I pull out of my pocket. I hadn't wore this pea coat since that trip. And I was like, oh, look at this, Jose. It brings back memories of a train ride that was chaotic for me. And Union didn't create a lot of chances that night in Citi Field. Didn't create a lot of chances on the night that the Union clinched the Supporters' Shield against New York City. But last night really wasn't the case. And there isn't really anything else that I want to add on this topic of the starting 11. But the comments, there's been a couple comments, people saying that they agree with the observation that Bruno and Ty, they are too similar. Uwe does things completely different than Baribo and Damiani, making those runs in behind, opening up chances, and again, not throwing shade at Bradley Cannell. And I hope anybody in the team that's listening to this, I do not know better than those guys. There's a reason why they're coaches, and I'm just sitting behind a stupid computer screen and talking into a microphone. I've not put in the hours and the years of experience those people have. There's certainly a reason why Bradley Cannell has started Bruno Damiani and Ty Baribo as often as he has. But from the outside looking in, it just seems like things have worked better when Uwe is pairing one of those two guys. It feels like, okay, yeah, Uwe is getting opportunities, but then more opportunities are coming to Baribo. More opportunities are coming to Damiani. And as the comment said from Egon, he said a lot of the work Uwe does help Baribo shine in the beginning of the season, which is fair because Damiani, he got signed in February, right, Jose? And he missed the first game of the season against Orlando City, but then he was on the bench or he was available the rest of the season going forward. But Uwe and Baribo continued to make their starts with each other until Damiani was acclimated into how Bradley Cannell and this team wants to play. And then for majority of the season, we saw Damiani and Baribo, the two up top together. But yeah, it's disappointing to see the Union just miss multiple chances last night. And I don't have anything else to add other than I guess Mikel Uhr's comments last night about what his future holds now that he's out of contract officially.
Let's just say I'm keeping my options open. I'm not saying I would never come back. I love it here. I love the people here. I love my teammates. So I would definitely not say no. But yeah, that's not only up to me.
And he's not wrong. It's not only not up to him. It obviously comes down to the club too having to make a decision. But I don't know, Jose. Listening to this comments, maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much. He doesn't fully seem committed to staying in MLS. He says he's keeping his options open, which is fair. There's been reports that teams in Denmark could potentially be open to having Ua back there in his native country. Is he done with MLS? We'll see. Because the MLS free agency rules a lot better than me. What is the percentage if a team signs him on as a free agent, Jose, for his contract? He made a little bit over $2 million, so we can't make much more in free agency if a team signs him that isn't the Union, correct?
I believe so. That was the situation with Kai, though he was not a designated player. So I'd have to honestly. I haven't looked at him in a while. I've had no reason to.
Yeah.
But I think I think that there would be plenty of teams, excuse me, in MLS interested in bringing his. Yeah, a lot of teams, DC United included, interested in bringing someone like him, right? Sort of maybe not a guy to build an entire team around, but maybe a nice stopgap in between generations of or identities between teams of what it was and what it will be. I think Ua could be a nice bridge gap, build facilitating the transition. But I also can't blame him for wanting to go back to his home country, home league, etc., and tear it up. There's a reason why he was discovered and brought to MLS, and why not do it back home where his family probably feels closer, literally closer to home, and more comfortable. So I don't know. I don't want to read too much into. I don't know, Todd. What was it, like 20 seconds worth of audio? 14 seconds worth of audio. But if I were to guess, and I'm not here to break news or anything, I would go ahead and guess that was a wrap on the Mikel Ua experience. And the sad reality is that, yes, he played out his entire contract, but the Union got nothing for it. Or they could have maybe worked out a transfer with somebody. Not that the Union are in the business of getting draft picks or anything like that within MLS, but with this cash for player rule that just, got introduced this past off season, and obviously the Union have benefited twice from it in one season. I wonder if there was a play there in the future, though. I think that has a limit. I think that the Union could only
twice, right?
Yeah, I think they might have. See, now I'm rusty on this, Todd. I'm so sorry. I'm a little rusty.
In the off season, we'll get caught back up, people. Don't.
But anyways, I think that the thought remains: could there have been a play here for the Union to get more than just letting him play out? But I think it's also a respect thing to let him play out. A guy who has been a great servant for the club in his time, I think underappreciated, and has done more than people realize for the team and in his time here.
Yeah, I hope all said and done, if it becomes official that that Ua leaves MLS, signs with another club that's not the Union, I hope the fan base is more appreciative of Mikel's time here in the club. He's a top 5 all-time leading goal scorer, which I know is crazy to say considering how rough some of the early years were with the Union, and it wasn't going to take players long to climb up that leaderboard. But he had magical moments here in Philadelphia, and especially in 2022 between him, Gazdag, and Carranza, scoring 48 goals, I believe, between the three of them that season, 47 goals. I mean, it was a magical goal to see all three of those guys score double-digit goals in 2022 and MLS, and they really built a strong chemistry with one another. And yeah, I hope this fan base is a little bit more appreciative of what Mikel Ua offered to this team. The last thing that I would say that probably didn't help Carnell is Andre Blake getting hurt last night. Credit to Blake for sprinting back and in saving that chance from Fernandez Marcal, which would have made it 2-0. How Blake was able to get back there and swat it away. Eventually, it looked like he pulled his hamstring. Yeah, it's an unfortunate moment when you have to waste a sub on a goalkeeper, which I would imagine probably changes the substitution patterns a little bit for Brelly Cornell. Now you had called me on the way home and said, you do give Carnell credit there for being proactive, making 3 changes instead of 1, because he brought in Andrew Rick, Frankie Westfield, and Mikal Ua. And Frankie Westfield was definitely a positive. You had on the bench last night Olivier Bazo, Alejandro Bedoya, Ben Bender, Jeremy Raffanello. So if Blake doesn't get hurt, I would imagine it's probably Raffanello or Bedoya that you bring on if you're chasing a goal. I don't see Ben Bender coming off the bench. I don't see Olivier Bazo coming off the bench, especially if you still have Nathan Harriel and Frankie Westfield on the field together. No way you bring a third right back on the field. But yeah, I do feel like the injury to Blake kind of changed things a little bit for Bradley Cornell with his substitutions. But I did want to mention that real quick. But before we wrap up the show, I do have Blunder of the Week, and then we got to mention this real quick, Jose. The heroics from Matt Freese and the Union Slayer Maxi Morales. They haunt the Union. Morales 6 career goals against the Union, tied for his most against a single opponent in his career, 4 which are playoff goals. And MLS, adding salt in the wounds last night, Jose, with this lovely tweet. Anyone else having deja vu? Maxi Morales keeps haunting Philly in the Audi MLS Cup playoffs. A picture of 2021 when he scored, 2022 when he scored to give New York City the 1-0 lead. Union eventually go on to win 3-1. And then the lone goal in 2025.
That's an insane graphic. That's an incredible graphic. Whoever I have to figure out on the MLS writer Slack the person behind this graphic.
It's so nice.
Just out of congratulating him, this is a work of art. This is what all graphics from MLS should look like. This is an absolute banger of a graphic.
It is. I mean, to be able to go back and find pictures in 2021 and 2022 of Maxi celebrating once he scored those goals. I wonder if they had those pictures on hand, or as soon as he scores, are they just searching the archives? We got to find pictures of Maxi celebrating scoring against Philadelphia. Because it is indeed all 3 pictures from Subaru Park. And
hold up. I think I've met Sexy Hoagie in person in passing, like super quick. She's saying that she's as tall as Maxi Morales. Maxi Morales is 5'3".
Yeah.
5'3", right? Yeah.
Well, I met her in person too. I'm pretty sure you met with her, and she's definitely not 5'3".
Okay, she is not 5'3". In fact, when we were at the press conference, or when I was at the press conference listening to Maxi Morales, I looked down at his feet, and he's wearing, whatever, like Louis Vuitton shoes that look like they're Air Max 90 knockoffs or whatever. Those shoes must be like size 5 in men's. They're by far the smallest shoes I've ever seen. And I say that as someone who, as a 5'10" male, wears size 9, which is small. This was like a tiny little kid. Like it was unbelievable. I was in shock at how short the man is and how small proportionally he is. And yeah, I don't remember Hoagie being 5'3", but maybe, I don't know. Complete aside, I know we're going off the rails here, but that comment took me by surprise there. It's like, I don't believe that's true.
Yeah, I don't believe it either. I definitely don't believe it. But yeah, I mean, Maxi Morales, player, legend, absolute club legend for New York City. And Matt Freese, which is interesting too, a part of that 2021 team goes in goal because Andre Blake is a part of the many players that missed that game for the Union due to COVID. We all know what happens in 2021. And now he's on the flip side of things, beating the Union. 5 saves, Jose. 5 saves from Matt Freese. And when you were talking, I was like, hey, let me go ahead and quickly put this together. Hopefully this doesn't get taken down. But Matt Freese was unbelievable last night with the amount of saves. This should be all 5 saves from Matt Freese. 3 in the first half, 2 in the second half. The first chance with Bruno Damiani, which he does so well to out-muscle Shore, keep him away from him. Left-footed strike from Damiani just inside the 18-yard box. Then you have the header there by Makanya. He gets himself free. Good corner kick there by Kai Wagner, but you probably would have won a little bit more. This opportunity by Jacob Glesnes. I missed this live. I had to go back and see this. How Glesnes is able to free himself up right there and then have that opportunity after the long throw and with the right-footed strike. It's unfortunate. Second half here, it's a opportunity with Frankie. That's the one, Jose, I think that Frankie probably would want to have back. It's a great kick save by Matt Freese, and then the save maybe arguably better in the 92nd minute. Alaski cutting inside, long range strike. How Freese gets a fingertip on that. I mean, there's no denying that Matt Freese is for sure the US's number one goalkeeper, and his performance against the Union cemented that, in my opinion. I mean, what a unreal save there that was on Alaski, and unfortunately, just weren't able to find the back of the net, and that's what happens. I mean, how many times did Jim Curtin talk about the amount of points that Andre Blake won the Union? Multiple times. And Matt Freese keeps all 3 points and sees New York City going to the Eastern Conference Final because of his heroics on the night.
Nothing to add. Just an
you're good.
unbelievable match because I think about that Iloski, the save against Iloski, which again, like Iloski from here on out and has already had that permission from me. He can shoot from anywhere the man wants. I no player should be putting their hands up or anything like that. If Milan wants to shoot, let him shoot because look how far away he is and he gets it on
defenders on him. 3 defenders
on frame and I'm still in awe that San Diego couldn't figure out how to make it happen to keep him beyond the early, I guess, the loan that he was on. But just incredible. Justin Hack spoke about him so well after the match. Pascal Jansen also spoke about him. It's just poetic that it happened at Subaru Park of all places, right? So, and he was actually very. Thank you to you and folks at MLS for getting me the clip. And he spoke very highly. Yeah, it was an incredible moment, an incredible game, but he still celebrated the fan base of Philadelphia and playing in Chester being, a very meaningful thing to him. So, respect to him and best of luck to him. Once a homegrown, always a homegrown, right? Not just because of designation, but because I think it sticks to these players, right? Where their careers truly, truly started. So it'll be interesting to see what Mauricio Pochettino does in terms of the goalkeeper position. But I would be hard pressed to say that Matt Freese in the past 3 weeks has not done himself favors. Like Paraguay, Uruguay, and now this game. Like it's just so hard to see how. Who else would it be? Celentano,
Matt Turner.
Matt Turner. Like no way. Hard pass to say that either one of those makes it past them. And if anything, that save. And I used this comparison with somebody in MLS. Son had that free kick against Vancouver in the 95th minute. This was New York City's Son moment. It wasn't a goal. It wasn't an assist. It was a save equally as important and as I'm sure as meaningful to Matt as a goal had he been a striker. Just an unbelievable save. I spoke about the New York City FC fan press, whatever you want to call them. The amount of noise that came out from them after that save was not professional. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I lost myself in memory. I said, am I in the stands or am I in a press box? Couldn't quite tell, but yeah, I have no words on that. It was interesting for sure, but yeah. happy to see Matt Freese succeeding. I don't understand why the fan base wants to go ahead and boo former Union players coming in, especially Union players that are homegrown players. It makes no sense to me. And I do got to pull this comment up real quick if I can find it. Right here. All the way at the beginning of the show, Sexy Hoagie says New York City single fan section was louder for the entire match than the entire River End section. I agree. Won't see me disagree with you there, Sexy Hoagie. But you know, when you have saves like that from Matt Freese, when you have moments of brilliance from Maxi Morales, it's easy to get a fan base excited. And we had talked about the mentality side of things from New York City. Big credit goes to Pascal and his coaching staff for having his players up for the match last night against the Union. But I do want to get to Blunder of the Week real quick because I did mention this has to do with Jose Nunez. There is a little bit of a factor of Jose here. So Blunder of the Week is going to go to something that happened today between Everton and Manchester United, and Jose is looking like, what does this have to do with me? Well, I saw your comment on social media, Jose, and I want you to share the story here real quick. And I feel like you shared that story with me before. I don't know if you've shared it publicly on the podcast, but I do want you to share it on the podcast. And so for people, I'm definitely not going to share the clip on the podcast because if I show any NBC clip, Peacock clip, this stream will get canceled. It will be shot into oblivion right away. The people, the snipers at NBC are excellent anytime you try to post their content online. So I'm not going to show the clip, but Gana Gay, the midfielder for Everton, gets sent off in the 13th minute because he slaps his teammate, Michael Keane. There's a moment where, okay, who's at fault for the shot from Bruno Fernandes? Is it Ganagay? Is it Michael Keane? They're arguing with each other, and Gay is just not happy whatsoever. And so he slaps his teammate. He literally slaps his own teammate. And maybe I'll go ahead and leave the link in the show description for you guys if you guys don't want to search for this moment in this game. I'll leave a link for you guys. But I've never seen a teammate get sent off for something that he did against his own teammate. And so that's going to be Blunder of the Week.
Not good. Yeah, not good.
But what this has to do with Jose is because, Jose, I'll let you take it from here because this is hilarious that somehow this ties into you.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in shock. Yeah, it's such a stupid story. In high school, and I have plenty of people to vouch for this because of how stupid it was. My brother and I were just a year apart, so we often ended up playing on the same team just out of the sanity of my parents, and I've come to appreciate that having my own two boys, not too far away age-wise, though a bigger gap than my brother and I. We ended up, I think it was the county 2008 to 2009. I can't remember when. County final or district final. We were losing. It was like the final 10 minutes or something like that. And my brother had just done something unbelievably stupid in the run of play. And I just shouted at him, like, like, what are you doing? Like, just like get the ball forward, that type of thing. Nothing foul, no curse words that I can think of. I don't remember anyways. And even if I did, like, that's the last thing that a referee should be paying attention to in that setting. But as soon as I shouted, the referee turned around and gave me a card, which at the time, PIAA had the rule that if you got a yellow, you had to come out. I don't know if that's the case anymore, or maybe I don't know if that was the case for you in Maryland, Todd, when you were playing soccer in high school. But I walked away and thought, okay, I got a yellow for shouting, I guess. I don't know. But then I was told it was a red. Like, what the fuck? Like, I was just in absolute shock. So I got a red card for shouting at my brother across the field to go forward or do something different that I guess I wasn't happy with. So it's been lore in my family and my group of friends that I played ball with that I was red carded for shouting at my teammate, which at the time I didn't know was a thing. But now that I have known it's been a thing since 2009 or 2008, when I saw this clip, I was like, I was in the receiving end of one of those. So yeah, that's a thing. Like it happens, believe it or not, even at the lowest of levels like high school.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's stupid. It's
So,
what it is. It's dumb.
it is dumb. I
Fitting
mean,
for me.
why would you slap your teammate? And then your situation, I feel like it's even worse. I mean, if we're back in 2008, 2009, that might be contender of blunder of the year. You're yelling at your own brother. You're not saying anything wild, not anything reckless, and you get sent off. That is crazy. And you miss the next game.
Yeah, I missed the season opener for my senior year in high school.
I cannot believe they remember to carry over that red card. Say, oh, Jose Nunez, if he comes back, suspend it.
Which is why it leads me to believe that it was county versus district or states, where like they wouldn't have cared, those two. I think if it was county, because it was the opening of the year, typically is just, you know, county games, so your own backyard, Berks County. That's probably why I had to sit for one game. And yeah, just an uncomfortable truth, of just literally sitting there after busting my ass all preseason. And, you know, I think the week before they finally ruled on it. Of like, yeah, he's got to sit. It's like, okay. It's been
something against the Nunez brothers. Your brother graduates, and then they didn't want you playing the first game of your senior year. They said, get these guys out of here.
You know, I wouldn't even consider, even if I dropped an F-bomb at my brother, I don't know that that's worthy of a red card, but I guess by the book it would be. I don't think that you're allowed to curse in high school ball. But you know, it is what it is. So yeah, getting a red card for doing or yelling something at your own teammate, definitely a thing. And I guess that's out in the ether. Yeah, I'm a bad teammate.
Bad teammate. Don't want him on the team. But yeah, that's pretty much everything here in hour 22. Jose, anything you want to plug? I know you had just written your last article with Philly Voice. I will go ahead and leave that link in the description to get as many eyes on that as possible. But social media where people can follow you. Anything else you want to go ahead and link?
Yeah, everybody can go ahead and just follow me on social media. I think I just want to take a brief 20-second moment here to just say a gigantic thank you to Philly Voice for tapping me on the shoulder for the experiment of writing for the playoffs. Hopefully, I think they were satisfied with what I wrote. I wonder and hope that the traffic was enough to maybe justify it for next season, because I would love to do that. But we'll see. So thank you to anybody and everybody who read. And this is not like the sappy moment to talk about coverage and whatever, because just as we experienced last year, Todd, I don't think that the news ever slows down with this team. And I think that's going to be the case here in the next, certainly 3-4 weeks. And even at that rate, that's already 1/3 of the offseason gone. So the preseason coming, where they're going, et cetera, it'll be fun to dig around again, figure out if they go internationally or not. I know that was a nice little bit of breaking news at the time. So let's see what happens this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys want to go ahead and follow the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast of The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod, where the goals breakdown video get posted all the time. And the podcast is live every single episode. And you can go ahead and check out my writing, the goals breakdown video or podcast, all in one place at thefreekick.substack.com. And Jose and I, like, honest to God, like, we have 3 to 4 episodes already planned out for you guys. We have lots of content. I will eventually get the goals breakdown video posted for this game between New York City and Philadelphia Union. And then after that, I'll go ahead and do my top 10 Philadelphia Union goals during the regular season, top 10 saves during the regular season. And yeah, I mean, as Jose said, I mean, the news never stops with this club. You guys know exactly what we offered, what we gave you guys during the off season. I felt like every single week there was something that Jose and I were coming on the podcast talking about. So there will be lots to talk about, lots to discuss. And I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's disappointing that the Union aren't going to be playing in the Eastern Conference Final this Saturday. It's disappointing that the Union aren't going to be playing in MLS Cup when they could have hosted it at Subaru Park. And I think just imagine if the Union would have played into Miami and beat Messi. I mean, this historic season now becomes even more historic because they finally beat Messi. And now they get to host MLS Cup for the first time ever at Subaru Park. But it just wasn't meant to be. And it is what it is. And I hope the fans are appreciative of what this season was with Bradley Cornell, his coaching staff, the players, everybody involved in the front office, everybody involved in this team, because they really put their heart and soul out on the line to make the season what it was. And so I hope the fan base are happy with the efforts with the organization. And I'm looking forward to good things to come ahead. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.